It's always interesting, Diesel, to see how your feelings about a game differentiate from the facts, from the stats, from the data, right? Because as soon as you and I start analyzing a matchup or a football game, we have initial thoughts on it, right? Like Panthers-Rams. When we heard that was the playoff game, bam, we had initial thoughts on it. They weren't good thoughts, but they were thoughts. Same thing.
I have bad thoughts a lot, especially with the Carolina Panthers.
Maybe that was a bad example to use. Same thing is true with Indiana-Miami on Monday night for the national championship. When the game, like when Indiana won, when they beat Oregon, you and I had initial thoughts on the game. It's interesting, though, to see how those initial thoughts differentiate between what I have on the rundown, what I'm going to get into, what you and I are going to get into in this very segment, with how these two teams match up versus one another. Now, we know that what the facts say and the stats say, what happens on paper doesn't always equate to what happens on the field, but it's a good basis to go by. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. That's where we start the show 5 days away from Miami and Indiana, the national championship. It's great, but it's sad because it's the last college football game of the year. We're live today at Ingalls Markets at 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway, Highway 29 in Spartanburg on the west side for you locals. Would love to see you. We've got one Ingalls gift card left, and that's it. Just one.
It's because they're in such high demand.
They're in high demand. The Tolos were here before the show waiting in a line for you and I, Diesel, signing autographs, so that took a while. And what's amazing is the amazing feat today, we're live on a Verizon hotspot despite the entire nation, the great United States, being on a Verizon outage.
I didn't even know that. See, this is the benefits of being on AT&T, baby.
We're both
whenever
AT&T.
Verizon goes down, it doesn't affect me one bit.
So you're AT&T, I'm AT&T, but the show right now is being broadcasted on a Verizon hotspot. I don't know how that's working because if you've seen Facebook posts today, I've had family members text me. Nobody's phones are working.
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this was a problem.
Nationwide. It's great to have AT&T, though, right?
Yeah, get on board with AT&T, you losers.
You go. That's right. Free paid endorsement right there. Anyways, we're live. We're on location. Regardless of the Verizon outage today, we're still here. We're rocking and rolling on the west side of Spartanburg. We'd love to see you. It's a beautiful day, a little chilly, but, man, this Ingalls, Diesel said it a minute ago before the show, it's buzzing. The west side, there are a lot of people going throughout the store right now. We'd love to see you on the west side of the Berg today. But before we get into the stats, the data, going back to what I said, initial thoughts. Let's see if mine and your initial thoughts match what the data says. What were your initial thoughts on Miami, Indiana, and how those two teams match up against one another?
God, it feels like at this point it's a strength versus finesse argument. It is strength for Miami, a bunch of big dudes, road graders, versus the finesse of Indiana that even though they've gone up against Alabama, they smoked them. They went up against Oregon, and they smoked them. I think this Indiana team might be the most complete team in college football. Even if they're not the most, on paper, talented team in college football, I think they're the most complete and ready for basically any situation. And that, to me, says Miami better watch out. Indiana might make this thing ugly early.
Well, it goes to Kirk Herbstreit's point that I think you had the audio last week when Kirk said, hey, you don't have to have all 5 stars, right?
Yeah.
Indiana, you said it, they might not be the most talented in terms of star rankings, but guess what? They're the most talented in terms of beating the crap out of opponents, right? Because they've done that week in and week out. I think it's going to be fascinating. Here's what I will say before we dive into the data. Right now, Diesel, and let me check to make sure it hadn't moved in the last few minutes. Right now, Indiana, this scares the crap out of me, by the way. Indiana's an 8.5-point favorite.
Oh, my.
And look, I'm going to pick Indiana. I think you're probably going to pick Indiana, too. I'm not putting words in your mouth there, but I don't know if I like 8.5 points. That's a lot. Could they win by 8.5? Sure, they're that talented, but don't you feel like that's steep?
You're a little bit of a gambler at times, Cole. You don't have any interest in like going big, and betting this thing up to like 10.5, 11.5 points. Because
am I that confident in Indiana? Yeah. Like kind of, but at the same time, I do respect Miami. That's the problem, Like I respect what they've done. I still think Indiana's the better team.
Right,
I do. 8.5 just seems like a lot of points to me.
Miami's they've shown themselves to be vulnerable multiple times throughout the season, losing to a couple of bad football teams
Unranked.
and being in close games early in the season, talking about that Notre Dame game. You haven't seen Indiana be in very many of those. They've just looked dominant far more often than Miami has.
So let's start with Miami's offense, Diesel, versus Indiana's defense. And when we talk about how these teams match up versus what our feelings are, here's what the data says. Miami offensively, 31.6 points per game, which is 30th nationally throughout the course of the season on average, right? Not the greatest.
Nope.
Not the worst. Total offense right at 399.6 yards per game. A balanced pass rush, Diesel, with about 5.93 yards per play. We know that Carson Beck's 3,300-plus passing yards. Malachi Toney, a 1,000-plus receiver. I love Malachi Toney. I think Malachi Toney's special. Mark Fletcher Jr., 950-plus. I think he broke 1,000 rushing yards on the season. They're a balanced ground air attack that does use a lot of the play action, very versatile, effective rushing in the playoffs, and that's one big key when you talk about playoff games, Diesel, late in the season, being able to run the ball. Fletcher averaging 90-plus yards, consistent gains, big offensive line. I don't know if the weakness of them being able to sustain drives is something you look at as a huge asterisk going into this game against Indiana because their defense is pretty good. And turnovers have kind of been inconsistent as well for Miami. Potential factor, a big one against this really good Indiana defense. And this Indiana defense matching up against them, Diesel, they're allowing 11.1 points per game, which is, by the way, second nationally. So if you look at how Miami's offense matches up versus Indiana's defense, it's around 30 offensively to second defensively. That's a pretty big gaping hole right there, right?
Yeah, we both sat and watched that Miami Ole Miss game, and Ole Miss couldn't tackle. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't get Miami down. And credit to Malachi Toney and everybody, the receivers especially there for the Miami Hurricanes in that game. They found ways to get off that initial contact and get a lot of yards after the catch. If they could do that again, maybe they have an opportunity to stay with Indiana, right? They're going to have to break a lot of big plays, and they're going to have to be on point in that aspect of the game, in this game, to hang with Indiana because Indiana is so ball hawking. They are so explosive in the pass game with Fernando Mendoza. I mean, Miami is going to have to figure out ways to put together a bunch of big plays over the course of this game. If they have to grind it out against this team, I don't know that they can keep up. I don't know that there's enough possessions for them to keep up with an offense that is as explosive as Indiana's.
Well, I think they're going to have to break some tendencies too because go back to what I said a minute ago. Diesel, their offense is averaging 399 yards per game. Mm-hmm. The problem is, though, Indiana total defense averaging around 260 yards per game. So you're talking about almost 150 yards there of wiggle room, like something's got to give room, right? That's top 5 nationally, by the way. They're second nationally in points allowed per game. Very disciplined on defense, low yards allowed per carry. Diesel, their run defense is exceptional. So I think when you talk about how this offense of Miami, before we get to the other side, matches up against Indiana's defense, I just said it. Miami runs the ball well, but Indiana's run defense is really, really good. Fletcher's success against creative scheming may be needed from a Miami standpoint. I just look at this run game as this is going to be important in sustaining drives. You just said that about drives and being able to steal possessions. If you want to sustain drives, somehow Miami, with this really good run game going up against this really good run defense, you're going to have to pick up first downs. These third and shorts are going to be critical on Monday.
Where would you say that Carson Beck needs to be? If you're doing it on a 1 to 10 scale, where does he need to be to win this game? I mean, you look at some of the down the stretch ACC games, he was more in the, 5, 6 range, 5 being mediocre, 1 being bad, 10 being great. He was having a lot of 5 and 6 games. He kind of looked a little bit like Bryce Young out there a couple of times, just wasn't putting up explosive numbers. And then, of course, in the playoff, things have changed, and he has turned it on, and he is back up there playing at like an 8 level. Where do you think he needs to be to win this game? Like, does he have to play his best game of the season to win this game?
I think he has to take some chance. Stretch Indiana at times, but this is a top-tier Indiana defense, and I think you're going to have to extend drives early, obviously protect the football, but you're going to also, Diesel, have to control tempo. Like, I think Miami, when you talk about Carson Beck, how good he has to be on Monday, I think he's going to have to come into this game Monday, and this offense of Miami is going to almost have to feel like they're in a basketball game at times, not meaning they have to get out and run, but meaning they have to control the tempo and pace of this game. Because you saw what happened when Indiana controls pace and tempo against Oregon, you're done. So I would say Carson don't have to play his best game, but I think he's going to have to, at times, hit on some deep stuff against Indiana.
Well, yeah, they're going to have to find ways to be multiple to stick with Indiana, who scores every quarter all season long. This is not one of those teams that will put up 3 scores on you in the first half and then just coast to a victory down the stretch. This team keeps on scoring. They put up 17 points in the second quarter against Alabama. That game went into the second quarter to 0-0 tie, by the way. 17 in the second quarter, 7 in the third quarter, 14 in the fourth quarter, beat the living tar out of them. You go back to other games that they've played. They keep scoring all game long. They're not going to have those lull quarters. Not every single game is a high-scoring game. You go back to that Ohio State game. Ohio State had a really good defense. Indiana didn't score in the second half. Indiana didn't score in the fourth quarter, but they were putting up field goal in the first and second, touchdown in the third quarter, and it was enough. Outside of that, Cole, they just keep scoring all game long.
Now, before we move over to the Indiana's offense, one more note. I'll say, Diesel, I think when we talk about this Miami run game, while it has been good, while Indiana's run defense has been really good, I think Indiana, from their side of things, from their perspective, I think that they're going to have to win first downs on Monday. I think Indiana's going to have to keep Miami in and longs. I think Miami's run game is good enough to where if they can get into and manageables and shorts, I think Miami's run game will win. And I don't mean that Miami has to go run for 160 yards on Monday, Diesel, but if you're in manageable situations where it's and 2, and 3, and 1, guess what? I think Miami is going to win some of those battles. So if you're Indiana, I think winning first downs is going to be critical to create those long third downs because you're good on third downs.
Yeah.
But then again, you hadn't gone against the run game as strong as Miami's either.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there about time of possession, and Matt Kraft brought this up on the stream as well. Look at what they did to the clock in that game against Ole Miss. They wore that defense out by possessing the ball. Off the top of my head, I think it was like 41 minutes out of that football game. It was absurd how long they held the football in that game. And Miami is really good on third down, just under 48% completion, conversion percentage on third down. And I'm sure they've got a good fourth down conversion percentage as well. I mean, this is a team that doesn't get intimidated by being in third down situations, by being in third and long situations, by being in fourth down situations. They are confident in their ability to pick up yards when it matters on all 4 downs. So you can't just say, okay, we got them to 3rd and 7. I think we're in good shape here. That's not the case with this Miami team. And Carson Beck is too good. He's too poised to be shaken by those situations.
Let's flip over to the other side. While we do, looking at the stream, we've given numbers here, Diesel. That's pretty much all we've done. We haven't given many opinions. We're kind of just giving facts, but of course, it's upset Madcraft. He says, this is becoming comical. Go watch film, guys. Madcraft, if it's comical, turn us off. Just cut it off. Like, I'm sorry, but we're giving you facts. We're giving you the numbers. Like this is what we do. We present facts. We're not making predictions. Like, turn the YouTube off, man. Like, bye. I mean, if you don't like it, turn it off. If it's comical, turn on Disney Channel or something. I'm sorry, but we're giving you facts. We hadn't made predictions. We hadn't said who's going to win. We're giving you numbers based on the facts and the evidence that we have, and that's what we're doing. So, I mean, enough of this whining stuff, man. You sound like the Wambulance. Wah, 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 whining. It's kind of sickening. Diesel, on the offensive side of things for Indiana, going against Miami's defense. Again, we're giving facts here. Now, numbers. Indiana, 40.4 points per game, top 3 nationally, averaging 461 yards per game. Very balanced, 218 yards on the ground, 243 yards through the air. They're explosive. They score on 92% of their red zone trips, which is alarming. That is alarming. 92% of the time when they're in the red zone, they score. They can hurt teams on the ground. They can hurt teams through the air. We know what the Heisman winner can do at quarterback. He's efficient. Thus far, Diesel, he hadn't turned the ball over much. I think if you're Miami, we talked about it with Oregon, you've somehow, some way got to get pressure on that guy because teams hadn't been able to do that.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, he doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. 6 interceptions on the season. If you can get him, if you can get into the backfield, you can certainly disrupt a lot of things. He's taken 22 sacks this season for 141 yards. Get into the backfield, disrupt him. That's your only hope here because he's completing at 73%. You give him time back there, he will pick you apart. He's surgical like that. He's averaging just under 10 yards per reception on the season. He's making big plays. He's making short throws. He's making intermediate throws. He can do it all, and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. That's what is so scary about this Fernando Mendoza-led Indiana team.
I do think it's one of the better defenses he'll see, though. I think it's a much better defense than what he saw with Oregon. Miami's defense only giving up 14 points allowed per game throughout the entirety of the season on average, which is top 5 nationally. They're holding opponents on defense, Diesel, to under 300 yards per game. So something's got to give there, right? With Indiana's offense, the amount of points they put up and the amount of yards versus Miami's defense. I think that this turnover margin is going to be important as well, as it is in any game. But Miami has a strong turnover margin, which can flip momentum. If you can somehow, some way, have third down defense like you have all season long, which Miami has allowed a 31.7 conversion rate, which is elite situational performance on the defense side of the football, and you can get pressure up front, which disrupts some of the timing of Fernando Mendoza, kind of like we saw with Trinidad Chambliss in a way with the timing being off because, he missed on that very first drive. He had a wide-open guy. A lot of that timing is caused from pressure just down the middle. If Miami can do that, get pressure up the middle, make them uncomfortable, throw off the timing, and then somehow, some way, Diesel, turn them over, I think that you absolutely look at this ball game and think Miami has a chance to win. Turnovers. Can they turn them over? That's going to be critical.
Yeah, going to have to play clean, both of these teams, if they want to win this ball game. Cole, when we come back, let's get into the dominant performance that we saw from Clemson last night. They just keep on winning. Brad Brownell's squad of a whole bunch of transfers. They seem like a juggernaut right now. I would not want to be facing Brad Brownell's Tigers. Let's talk about their win last night at home against Boston College and the huge star that came off the bench to get it done for the Tigers. That conversation coming your way next as we're live here in Spartanburg, 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg. It's the west side location directly across the street, catty corner across the street from the Academy Sports. Come see us. We'll get you hooked up with an Ingles gift card while supplies last.
state.
Cole, this is big time. We are getting DMs from our Tolos down in Anderson saying, hey, we're hearing you guys down here in Anderson, South Carolina. That's
Chris.
big.
How about Chris?
Yeah.
Shout out to Chris. Commented on our Facebook page, Diesel, and he said, got you loud and clear on 101.5 in Anderson, and we were expecting to be on, but the government shutdown delayed it because of the FCC and some government stuff. I do believe there is a switchover that's going to take place, and I'm going to try to find those details. I do believe it's going to switch over to another FM frequency, but yes, Chris, very much appreciate you listening. If you are still listening in Anderson on our new frequency, so excited about that, and we'll keep you updated whenever the switch does happen.
That's true. That government shutdown still kind of rearing its ugly head in a lot of different ways. Yeah. Still kind of affecting some things. But, hey, it's awesome to be on the air down in Anderson nowadays. And, Tolos, I know it can be kind of annoying if you're one of those old school terrestrial radio. You want to get in your car and dial it up on the radio. And it might be kind of annoying to have to switch from 97.1 in Spartanburg County to 97.7 in Greenville, then to switch to 101.5. It is kind of annoying, but hey, that's what the Odyssey app on your phone is all about. If you've got a modern car stereo, you can pull it up on the Odyssey app and you can plug it in, and you got it right there on your Apple CarPlay or your Android Auto. But hey, it's okay. A lot of people are old school when it comes to radio, and you want to listen to radio the old school way. Well, now you can.
You can in Anderson. And again, we were told there is going to be a switch over to a different frequency. We will get an update from that or on that from management and keep you updated for those Tolos in Anderson. We're coming to Anderson, baby. We're there.
Believe it or not, they don't tell us everything.
Yeah, so, not or anything.
That's true. That's true. But Tolos down in Anderson County, or is Clemson technically over the line in Pickens County? There was a splattering last night against the Boston College Eagles. Cole, just a blowout basketball game. The Tigers really seem like they're rounding into form. They're getting some significant minutes and significant scoring off the bench. They're getting guys healthy again. I would not want to face this Clemson Tigers team. And as a matter of fact, Madcraft's Miami Hurricanes, though it's basketball, so he probably doesn't care about the Miami Hurricanes. He's one of those guys that plucks and picks and chooses who he wants to be a fan of based on every single sport. But Miami is coming into Clemson in a couple of days, Cole, on Saturday, and that is a scary game if you're the head coach at Miami. Yeah, they're 15-2. The Tigers are 15-3. But right now, you look at the ESPN matchup predictor, I can't imagine that home court advantage is worth this, Cole, because Clemson is given a 72% chance to win that ball game.
That's big.
On Saturday. This team is playing really good basketball
I was worried about them covering the huge spread that they were, favored by last night. And what they do, they won by 24. They covered and some. So, you said it. It's not just the starting five. I think we talked about this last week, Diesel, with the bench production. Look at the score, the box score from last night. Mm-hmm. Carter Welling was good, 10 points. RJ was good with 10 points, but it's the bench production. I mean, Nick Davidson coming off with 25 minutes and 25 points. Diesel, when you get that kind of bench production and conference play in this league, in the ACC, you're going to win a lot of games, and you don't turn the ball over. You play good defense. That's what Clemson did last night. It was not a good Boston College team. Don't get me wrong. They're pretty bad.
I think they were a game under 500 coming into this game.
Yeah, they're now 7-10 and 0-4 in conference play. So you're right. It's a bad BC team, but nonetheless, Clemson did what they were supposed to do. They took care of business.
Yeah, and, we were curious a couple of weeks ago about this Clemson team, and would they have the depth once they got into ACC play? Their starters were tasked with playing a lot of minutes, but could they get their guys off the bench to come in, play a lot of minutes, be productive? Well, guess what? Butta Johnson played his 20 minutes last night. He is slowly creeping back up after that groin injury that he sustained in December. You had 3 starters over 30 minutes. That might be a little problematic, especially when you're playing against the more up-tempo teams that really want to move. You can get gassed having to play 30 minutes in a ball game, but Carter Welling, Justin Porter, and RJ Godfrey all did that. But, when you got a guy, like you said, like Nick Davidson, who comes in off the bench, scores a season-high 25 points, including 21 consecutively in the first half. How do you deal with a guy that is just, NBA jams on fire like that?
Yeah, and you're shooting the ball well. I think that's kind of where this Brad Brownell team is right now. Take the stats from last night and go back about a month and a half, especially that stretch around BYU, Alabama, where we saw the potential of this team. They just weren't putting it together. Clemson shooting the basketball better. I also think they're playing more confidently on offense. Last night they shot a 46% clip from the field, which is going to get it done. You shoot almost 50%, you're going to win a lot of basketball games. And they were shooting a 42% clip from beyond the arc last night at a three-point range, a three-point percentage of 42%, which is spectacular. Boston College, again, just horrible, especially from the free throw line, 38% to Clemson 70 last night. Clemson out-rebounded Boston College. They had more assists. They had more steals. The only thing Boston College had more of was 4 more blocks, but that didn't really matter. They also had 9 more turnovers than Clemson did last night. It's just a Clemson team that's kind of hitting their groove right now. You wish it was March, right, because they're playing really, really good. But at the same time, Diesel, it does give Brad Brownell, I'm sure, a lot of confidence in his group that he's had for several months now. But it's a matter of this new team with these new pieces coming together and gelling at the right time, and they're certainly doing that right now.
You'd still love to see him get that free throw percentage up just a little bit. 16 of 23 last night, like you said, good for 70%. That's decent, but it's certainly not great. You'd like to see that up more, a little higher, towards 75%. RJ Godfrey, he missed 4 of them last night. Carter Welling went 2 for 4 from the free throw line. Outside of that, Nick Davidson 5 for 5 from the line. Ace Buckner was perfect. Butta Johnson was perfect from the line as well. So, certainly teams are going to be keying in on that fact as we get down the stretch. They'll pull the old hack-a-shack and try to hack RJ Godfrey as much as they can. And then, how do you like, Cole, being able to catch your groove at this point of the season, not playing the absolute gauntlet meat of it until late, right? Like, you're playing good basketball teams. You're playing Notre Dame. You're playing Miami. You're playing good teams at this point of the season. You get a couple nights off here and there against the BCs, but hey, somebody's got to come in last in the conference. But they're still like a couple of weeks away before they got to face that gauntlet of playing Wake Forest and North Carolina and Duke. They can catch their stride. They can figure out all of their rotations, figure out how many guys they can truly play heavy minutes, and then they get the best teams in the conference.
Yeah, when they go out west, that 2 to 3 stretch, that 2 to 3 week stretch is going to be brutal. But Clemson right now, kind of to answer your question, they're finding what works, and what they're doing is they're playing really good defense. They're turning teams over, and because of those turnovers, they're able to set up some really good looks in fast break, but also offensively right now. The defense is just disruptive, that Clemson's is. You hold Boston College to 50 points. You force them to 19 turnovers. You forced Notre Dame the last game into 14 turnovers, and you held Notre Dame to 27 second-half points. So when you talk about this Clemson defense right now, they're aggressive. They have that defensive pressure that's translating into those transition looks that are just easy looks. Every coach in America, Diesel, would tell you, if they can run and get out and play and get looks in transition, they'll take it. It doesn't matter, especially in ACC play. Now, those numbers are going to come down a little bit. Those 19 and 14 turnovers numbers are going to come down a little bit. But when you have guys that just continue to break out, like Justin Porter a couple of nights ago when he's had 26 points and 5 steals against Notre Dame, Diesel, or RJ Godfrey, who's kind of Mr. Consistent, Carter Welling, and then Nick Davidson last night, it's like almost every night Brownell just says, all right, guys, who's the one that's going to step up tonight? And thus far, he's had just a tremendous amount of bench production.
And yesterday we had Rocco Miller on the show from Bracketeer.org. Told us, of course, as always, you can go back and find all of our interviews anytime you want on the free Odyssey app and at thefanupstate.com. He was talking about this, Cole, about, sort of this Brad Brownell philosophy and personality of this particular team being, such a defense-heavy team, being like you put up a shot, everybody gets back to make sure you don't give up fast break opportunities. It is not the sexiest kind of basketball, You know, I've watched App State's basketball coach do the same thing over the last couple of years. They call it the pack line defense up there, and you know, you put up your shot, you find that first opportunity. If you're not efficient, if you're not hitting those shots, you got to get back and play defense. That's a little dangerous, you know, especially when you start playing those more high-powered offenses that love to push, because if you're not particularly playing good offense, if you're not seeing the ball, your typical scorers are not putting a lot of points in, that can get you in a hole.
Yeah, you know, one thing I just want to say before we run in this segment, Diesel, when you talk about Clemson's success, there are a lot of people, and myself included, because over his 16-year tenure, I've been very critical of Brad Brownell. But what's good about Brad Brownell is you're not having the same kind of conversations you're having about Dabo Swinney. Brad Brownell is using the portal. Brownell is using his NIL resources. He's getting guys in. Diesel, he lost a lot last year. And if you go back to the old school era of college athletics, when you look at what he lost and what he was bringing in this year, there wasn't much to be confident about, but he goes in the portal, he gets dudes, and all of a sudden now, and again, I know it's been 16 years, a lot of Clemson fans have mixed opinions on Brownell, but like this guy is a good coach. And as critical as I've been of him as well, he knows how to get his team to a point where they can perform at peak.
Sure.
Unfortunately, his teams haven't always peaked at the right time. We saw it a couple of years ago, really good team. Sometimes it just seems like the team doesn't peak when they need to in March, but right now this team's peaking, and they're showing you what they can do well, and you said it, the stretch coming up here in a few weeks, it's going to be tough, but, I mean, they're just, right now, I mean, there's not much you can point to. They're tough to scout because they just have one guy that's different, step up every single game, and Brownell's doing a heck of a job coaching right now. He deserves a lot of credit.
Is Brad Brownell the Mike Tomlin of ACC basketball coaches? You know, I mean, good in the regular season, gets his team into postseason play more often than not, especially over the last, 5-6 seasons. But when you get him there with Mike Tomlin, what was that stat we had yesterday? 5 straight double-digit losses for the Steelers in the postseason. And Clemson has laid a couple of eggs over the past couple of years in postseason play. Looking at you, McNeese State game. Looking at others
last year, right?
Last year, yeah. So, Brad is certainly, when you look at his regular season stats, it looks like he is one of those like late bloomers that's coming on at the right time and has figured some things out. But then it's eventually got to turn into some postseason success as well, or you end up with a Mike Tomlin situation where you got people saying, well, he wins games. What else are we going to do? Would we rather fire him and go to somebody that can't win?
Well, I also think, Diesel, what's important to remember is the ACC is still really good. There's no doubt. But what wins ACC games is not the same thing that wins tournament games. Winning ACC games is extremely difficult. Don't hear me wrong on that. I'm not saying the ACC is a breeze. But winning tournament games, hear Coach Cal talk about it. You have to have a group that has some age. You have to have a group that has some experience. And the older teams are winning. The older teams are doing that. And Indiana, and on the college football side of things, Diesel, to bring it back to football, they're a very old team. They're not much older. They're not much younger, rather, than the Philadelphia Eagles are. So youth does hurt you in this new modern era of college basketball. And when Brownell gets these guys out of the portal, like it takes a little while to get things going. It takes some weeks to gel. And I think he's going to win a lot more ACC games. But can Brad Brownell's style translate into what it takes to win postseason games? I'm not disrespecting the ACC, but there's a difference between winning ACC games and winning tournament games. There just is.
What I like about this Clemson team is that entire starting 5, all juniors and seniors. And how about that? Isn't that a departure from what college basketball was just 10 years ago? We were all bemoaning the one-and-dones going off to the NBA, and Coach Cal at Kentucky was building his roster all on one-year players. And, that's what separated like Coach K at Duke, is he had teams with age on him. He was playing a lot of juniors and seniors, and you had those guys that would stick around. I think it does say a lot about Brad Brownell that for example, an RJ Godfrey wanted to come back
no doubt,
and finish up his career at Clemson. It says something, and maybe, hopefully, Cole, that turns into being able to retain some of these players, because if you can be good in the portal to the point where you're selective, you don't need to go out and get 6 or 7 guys the way Brad Brown had to do for this season, but you can now bring those juniors in and retain them for their senior seasons. Looking at Carter Welling, looking at Jake Wallen. If you can hang on to those guys, and Nick Davidson as well, they're all juniors. If you can get them back for another season with retention, now you're talking about a scary team.
No doubt. Speaking of scary teams, Diesel, Burns last night with a big win in Region 2 5A play. You heard the game right here on the Fan Upstate. Let's take a look at the Region 2 5A standings in the very next segment. A little high school basketball update after last night's Dorman-Burns game. How does Region 2 5A look kind of going into the midpoint of region play, as well as some teams? I've pretty much seen every team in Region 2 5A at this point, outside of just one. I think there's one that I haven't seen, and that's Riverside. Locally, though, Diesel, some really, really good basketball. We'll get into it next right here on the Fan Upstate.
Upstate.
Well, we've had a couple of text messages, Facebook posts as well, and comments about being on in Anderson at 101.5. We can update you and tell you that it's true. It's confirmed. The Tolos out there are not lying to us, but there will be a switch in the near future. We don't know exactly when. Diesel still has to get up on top of the tower and take his wrench up there. He won't
why'd they put the switch way up there?
I don't know what you're waiting on.
I got to climb up there and get to it.
It will switch to 95.9 FM very, very soon. We just don't know when. So it's currently in Anderson, 101.5, but we'll switch to 95.9 FM. So we will then be on, we are now on in Spartanburg, Greenville, and Anderson, covering a large majority of the upstate. But again, we'll keep you updated as we know more. And you, hey, Tolos, you keep us updated as well. If you're driving around in the Anderson area listening on 101.5, that's great. We appreciate you. However, if it falls off one day and we're not there, just know it's moving to 95.9 at some point whenever Diesel decides to get up on the tower.
Yeah, do us a favor. Let us know. I mean, Anderson County is a big place. Let us know where you are. And let us know where you're picking up 101.5 in Anderson.
And a lot of new listeners, I'm sure, will have to let them know what Tolo is, and we'll continue to update you on that. Diesel, Region 2 5A panning out nicely in favor of the Burns Rebels as Burns gets a huge region win last night over Dorman. I've seen every team in Region 2 5A now except for Riverside. Burns is now 5-0 in Region 2 5A, sitting at number 1. Dorman's number 2. Riverside is 3. Spartanburg is 4. Gaffney's 5. Eastside is 6. Boiling Springs is currently 7 right now at 1-4 in Region. And Wade Hampton is 0-5 in Region, who, by the way, won their appeal today with a high school league to move down to 4A. You know how we talk about Wade Hampton not being competitive in a lot of these sports? Guess what? They won their appeal to move to 4A. So the Generals won't be playing in this region here in a few months.
Okay, so curious, Cole. Do you think that they will bump somebody up to fill that gap left behind by Wade Hampton not being there, or will they shrink the division?
What happened is a couple of weeks ago, right around December 19th, the high school league released new classifications. Once they release the new classifications, Diesel, of 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, and 5A, schools can then appeal, right? So this week, that's all that's happening this week is appeals. And Lou Bezjak of the state newspaper is doing a fantastic job with those appeals in terms of updating us on Twitter. If you want to find it, Lou's a good friend of the show. Find him on Twitter. He's literally tweeting every minute. It's all week, all appeals. So then, Diesel, to answer your question, after the appeals, they'll finalize the classifications, and then at the end of the month or in February, they will release the new regions. So there will be a little bit of movement to answer your question. But this is a strong basketball region. I was very, very impressed. We'll get to the phone lines in just a second. I was very impressed with Dorman last night, as Dorman now 4-1 in region. But Burns, man, how about Burns last night? A big win over Dorman, 5-0 in region play. This team led by Lane Fowler. They are rolling. Colt Fowler was incredible last night. Diesel, I can tell you this. I have seen few basketball players that have an elite on-court vision and passing ability that Colt Fowler has. He was sensational. The freshman Kellen Leverett was really good. This is high-level basketball, and it's a lot of fun calling these games. This Region 2 5A is incredibly difficult, just like it is in football. And you and I and Trey Stewart of the Greer News talked about that last week. It's a gauntlet week in and week out.
So give me a sense of some of the styles of play that you see in this region. I mean, are we all is there a lot of sort of run and gun offenses that really just want to outscore you? Do we have any teams that are just playing elite level defense?
Burns is the team that's going to want to, in their name, the Running Rebels. They want to get out and run. They want to move in transition. They want to be fast. They want to play fast. Colt Fowler is just so fast, Diesel. It's hard to defend. Dorman's kind of, I don't want to say the opposite, but Dorman likes to use their players and what Thomas Ryan wants to do in his system in terms of using a guy like Will Bush, who's 6'6", 6'7", something like that, using him in the post, using that post presence to their advantage, getting down in their sets. Jaden Johnson's an incredible player for Dorman. He didn't have the best night last night. So, no, to answer your question, it's a mix. You've got different styles. Riverside's always a really gritty defensive team. Alan Arnold at Riverside does a tremendous job year in and year out. Craig Martin at Bowling Springs, he's been there for a few short years now, they're always gritty, scrappy. They make it tough on you, but it's a lot of fun. Boiling Springs will come to Burns on Friday. We'll have the call for you on the Fan Upstate. But this region, man, just like for football, it is tough in basketball. Real quick, let's go to the phone lines. Rick and Greer wants to weigh in. What's up, Rick? Rick?
Okay, did I hear you? Yeah, did I hear you correctly that they picked up the option for the midget for Carolina?
That is true.
Are they crazy?
Well, you don't have a choice right now. What are you going to do?
Yeah, who do you got that's better? You going to put Andy Dalton's old ass out there? No.
No, I would get Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, get out of
Put him
here.
out there.
Is his head screwed back on
Come
straight
on,
after that slap to the head
Rodgers.
he took? Goodness
Oh,
gracious.
my God.
Okay. Anybody's better than the midget.
More like
okay?
Karen Rodgers.
Here's what
am I
I'll
right?
say. Rick, I would normally agree with you. Here's what's crazy, though. I don't know today that you could convince – and I'm not the biggest Bryce Young supporter. You know that. But I don't know that today I would take Aaron Rodgers right now over Bryce Young. You just don't have much left on the tread.
And come on, Rick.
I would take that. You do Burns football. I would take Burns quarterback this past year over him.
Come on, Rick. You've watched him be terrible for a decade now. Can't you just slow your roll a little bit? Let him build for one more year and see if there's a better option out there?
I've slowed my roll for 9 years. Okay. And I put up with Bryce Young for 4 years. Now I got to put up with him for another year.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, hey, after this year, they got to come up with a whole brand new deal.
Yeah, that's right.
So
one more year, Rick.
One
you got
more.
this, buddy. Thanks for the call.
Appreciate you, Rick. That is Rick in Greer. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg, and Melissa Level is here. She just walks in, and flower petals fall from the skies. Fireworks go off. It's a fantastic time to be at an Ingles Market. I want to see you here, but we'll talk to Melissa next on the other side of the break right here on the Fan Upstate.
Clear.
Talking Sports with Melissa Level, Marketing Director for Ingles Markets, as we do every time we are live on location at an Ingles. We're at 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg, and some unconventional timing. Next week, we're going to be back out on the road as well, Cole. We're going to be at the Greer store. So we're going to see you 2 weeks in a row, Melissa?
Yes, you are.
What a
I
treat
made it that
for
way
us.
because you guys are my favorite
Oh,
sports guys in the
I love
entire planet.
Question number 1, and this is a hard-hitting question. This comes directly from one of our Tolos. Dewey wants to know, are you hiring?
Absolutely.
I don't know that you should.
Have you heard
Wait a
Dewey on
minute.
the show before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, Diesel, don't do that to her. I don't know that she wants to say yes to that.
Back of house only kind of job.
Yeah.
No, believe it or not, even Dewey.
How about that?
And I love you, Dewey.
Oh, that's great. So, how are you navigating not having a working phone today? Do you like it or hate it?
You know what? I find it kind of pleasant. For the first couple of minutes, I was a little bit, because that's how I do business when I'm on the road. Okay, I get emails and check all that stuff, and I was kind of a little bit, but then all of a sudden I was driving down here and I thought, this is kind of nice.
Have they sent anything out like
Well, I don't know because I don't have a phone.
Well, that's true. So Ruby called me.
That's right. I told her we were at lunch together, and I said, Ruby, somebody needs to make sure you guys can do this.
She called me and she said, "Do y'all think y'all have a show?" And I said, "Wow." And I thought, "Oh wait, Verizon hotspots, great point."
Right.
Me and Evan connected them. It worked.
Right.
So I had to, thankfully, voice audio call her and got through to her. But I don't know. I didn't know about it until a couple of hours ago. Diesel and I both have AT&T, thankfully.
That's great. Mm-hmm.
Melissa, there's an interesting sort of power struggle going on right now in college football. As it seems like it was always going to be Greg Sankey for the SEC and Tony Petitti for the Big Ten. These two are going back and forth on what the playoff will be in the future. If you hadn't been paying attention to this, Sankey wants 16, and Petitti says he'll support that if Sankey says he'll go to 24 in a couple of years down the road. So these two are the ones deciding the future of the game. We're in an awkward position where what if Miami wins a national championship and the commissioner of the ACC, Jim Phillips, who is just a wet blanket on legs,
it's unbelievable.
he may have no control and no say in this thing. Can you, as a Florida State fan, pull for Miami to win the national championship so that Jim Phillips might actually get to have his opinion heard in the future of the game?
No.
That was a very
no. We'll let them decide it anyway.
First of all, to be honest with you, I think it's ridiculous those people are deciding all this. Right. Okay.
You're right.
I mean, I think it should be like this cumulative decision of all the people that are involved, all the conferences, including a SoCon and all of those things. People, this is football, okay? Yeah. And it doesn't just involve big companies. And what I'm really afraid of is the fact that you're not going to just have the two commissioners deciding. So you're going to have like Home Depot deciding, or Lowe's Foods, or Walmart, or whoever. If we were if we were a nationwide company, I can guarantee you we would be in that mix. But because the way we love sports. But I'm going to say this: I just don't think that the fan is being treated well. I mean, it's just not. I mean, they're forgetting us. And you and I were talking about the national championship price tickets. Okay. I think you're going to find that your ticket prices for your season ticket holders at college are going to go through the roof, because this is how we're going to be paying for people to be able to pay. That's how you're going to pay for your NIL.
The cheapest ticket to get into the national championship game, single get-in price, over $3,000, and parking. If you wanted a parking pass on grounds, almost $1,000. It's crazy. I could walk for free.
What happens if you have a season ticket for the Miami Hurricanes? Do you get in there? Does it make any difference?
Zero.
Right? Because it is a home game for them, right?
Yeah.
Basically it is a home game.
It is.
And I would think that it's going to be very interesting to see how much of the stadium that they can fill with Indiana traveling so well with their fan base, if they're still going to be able to have that home crowd advantage. What do you guys think?
I think there will be an advantage. I just don't know that there will be any upside for current season ticket holders, if that makes sense.
It is fun it's going to be fun to see what happens with that secondary market, right? How many of those get bought up? Because conventional wisdom would tell you that those farmers in Indiana don't have any money and they can't buy $3,000 or $10,000 tickets. but all the folks that live in Miami,
right?
They are flush with cash, and they're going to buy up all those tickets. So it's going to be a sea of orange and green.
Yeah, it's a shame, because I mean, I think what it comes to is how it plays in the field, and it'll be interesting to see what the television viewership is like too, because I think they usually like these big powerhouse teams and big TV markets,
sure,
right? And you're not getting a big Indiana TV market,
right?
And a lot of things are decided on where people play and who plays. I think in the background, at least the playoffs are situated where you're going to end up with teams, hopefully, that have come from New York, New Jersey, California, those kind of huge television markets that will also bring in a lot of ratings for the viewership. But I think based on the way the two teams have played, I just don't think there's any way that Indiana doesn't run away with it.
Ooh. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You led me into my next question. Currently, according to Vegas, Indiana is an 8.5-point favorite over Miami, which is a lot of points for a national championship game. If you had to lean on one side, would you go Indiana, or are you giving Miami a chance?
I really think based on the way they played, I mean, for goodness sakes, unless the Heisman curse decides to hit that night, which it could, maybe, I hope not too, because and that does happen a lot. I mean, I don't know if they just kind of, start thinking about the NFL or whatever it is, but based on how they play, they are incredible.
They are.
Right? They are incredible. I don't think that they've matched a defense quite like Miami before, and I think that'll be real interesting. I think they'll hold down the points, but I still think that they'll score on them a lot.
What do you think of Carson Beck? I mean, he's been up and down and up and down. Yeah, he's got the Georgia pedigree, but he's had games where he's throwing for 125 yards and a pick or two. Last week he had a monster. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a bad thing.
She didn't like that quite. The way you said attitude. That was how you really feel.
Well, I mean, he's probably a fairly decent player.
You mean cocky?
Yes, and he wasn't like that at the very beginning. If you notice, he's had a whole personality change. Okay, and then
I think it was the breakup.
He goes to Miami, dumps his girlfriend,
and
twin, right? Supposedly hanging around with adult film stars now.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
Wow, no wonder.
It's interesting. He's
well, at least he feels good.
Yeah, no doubt.
Of course, he shouldn't be running for like this week.
Yeah, women weak in the legs, Rock.
Well, listen, we talked about something yesterday. I want to get your thoughts on, because with your position at Ingles, you guys do a lot, like with kickoffs and events and things like that. It was Joey McGuire, the coach of Texas Tech, who came out, and his idea for these bowl games was interesting. We talked about it yesterday. You know how bowl games now are kind of dying in terms of fan attendance, excitement. The playoff has killed bowl games, right? They used to matter. They don't anymore. Joey McGuire's idea was to take those bowl games and move them to week 1 of the following year, like a kickoff game. There's already a Chick-fil-A kickoff in Atlanta.
Absolutely, right.
Do you like that or hate that?
I don't think the marketing has been well, but I don't mind the bowls being part of the playoff product. I mean, we had the Peach Bowl, and we had, those were bowl games.
They were bowl games, a part of the playoffs.
Okay,
right.
They've been part of the playoffs. But I think the other bowls, which, by the way, I think, we have way too many bowls.
Well, they're just, yeah.
I think the bowls are like consolation or participation trophies.
Well, we got to put 5-win teams in just to get the game played.
That's right, exactly. And so I just kind of think that maybe we reduce the number of bowl games back to like a reasonable level. I mean, it's like the Pop-Tart.
Well, he brought up a good point. He said there's no bowl games in high school football. There's no bowl games in pro football.
No bowl games in FCS.
Yeah, well, that's right.
We used to have the bowl games were like Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Rose Bowl.
Well, those mattered because
Orange
there
Bowl.
was only one.
That's right.
Postseason game.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But I think maybe you make the bowl game the beginning part of the playoffs, or right up. I mean, all the playoff games were a bowl game, right? They were a bowl game. They were the Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, right there. And so, but you look at that; those were the bowls you looked forward to on New Year's Day. You had that. Maybe you work around the schedule a little bit on the playoffs, but I think we have too many bowls. Well, I don't want to move a bowl just to keep a bowl.
Think of it this way, though. If they expanded the college football playoff, and it seems like that's where they're going.
I'd like to we go 64.
It's eventually going to go. Oh, God. We had a caller yesterday that proposed that.
Said that yesterday.
Sweet 16.
If they went, though, if they went to 24, looking at who was sitting right there in that 24
range. Play
range.
The championship like March?
Yeah.
You'd be competing with March Madness.
You'd be talking about like 9-4 Iowa getting in, or 9-3 Iowa getting in. So if that's the case, and we wanted to up the standard to even get into a bowl game to minimum 8 wins, Well, you don't need a bowl game if you're letting 8 and 9 win teams into an expanded college football playoff.
Well, like I said, I think the expanded college football playoff is because they do such a SE job of picking the teams that go in the 12. Okay,
if they go that big, I just want them to go straight seeding. Well, let's not mess around with auto bids.
Yeah, could be
agreements.
Can't you just like the winner of each conference and then the next in line, right? Okay, just where they seed in the conference, right? Kind of like what they do in NFL. You have your wild card teams, and then you have your conference, your division winners. And I think those are you get a bye like we had before, and I think you do it that well. I didn't mind 12. Okay. I thought who they had in there was ridiculous. Yeah. Everything from Texas Tech and James Madison and Tulane. I mean, they were in there so other teams could win.
It's interesting though. I think Melissa and Diesel and I have talked about this a lot. The biggest mistake I think we as fans have made since the inception of the college football playoff, this is wild, 2014. It's been that long ago. Right. It doesn't seem like the playoff's been around that long.
But Florida State won the last BCS championship.
Right, and Ohio State won the first college football playoff. Was Zeke Elliott. He was a junior. So I think the mistake we have made over the last decade is thinking that the playoff was invented because of us fans.
Right.
And when it's all about money, and the expansion of playoff is only going to be about money. And, when you talk about bowl games, I guess they're making money through the TV revenue. But
they're making money with people coming to their town and sponsorships that happen and all that.
But the expansion of the playoffs, we talk about like this team should get in, that team should get in. If you, in one big point.
How about if we just earn it?
Well, and that's the thing. But here's the problem with that. We talked about this yesterday. If you expand the playoffs to 24 teams, the regular season's not going to matter. Those games aren't going to have as much meaning. But what I'm getting at is us fans, we think they care about that. They don't care about that. No. They care about the more revenue. It's all about that playoff.
I really don't think that it has anything to do with the fan.
No,
NIL has nothing to do with the fan. Everything else, it's all taken. And you know what?
They don't care.
But I'm going to tell you something. They don't make any money without the fan.
Sure.
Okay.
No
and
doubt.
I think there's going to come a time when people are going to get fans are going to say, I've had enough. This is not college football anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you go to 24 teams, you're going to go, I'm just tired of watching it. Right. And
that's good. Yeah.
And the reason we love basketball playoffs, okay, it's like you have a Cinderella possibility. You follow it through. Those are the kind of things. It goes really quickly, but to have 24 teams, even 16 teams, I think you seed your conference winners, and then the next wild card, you have that, the 4-way. Keep it that way. That way, if you have a firm strategy, okay, and a set of rules, no one can say, well, they let them in because of this, or they let them in because of that. I just think there's no room for any funny business. Yeah. Okay,
if the NFL's got it right.
Yeah, if you play and earn that spot in the playoff, you go to playoffs.
Melissa, I'm going to throw a wild stat at you, and I don't think I've told this to Cole yet either. There was a 58-year-old nose tackle playing Division III football this year. His name was he played for Lycoming College, something I've literally never heard of. No, it's Lycoming.
Was it okay?
Division III.
Okay.
There was a 33-year-old punter playing for Villanova. Mm-hmm. There will be two, at least that I know of off the top of my head, 24-year-old players playing college football next year. One will be TJ Finley, a kid that is going to be on his 7th school in the 2026 season. And if Trinidad Chambliss gets his waiver to play and they sue and they win, he'll be 24 before they play season. Before they play game one of next season. No, he's already signed the $6 million deal to come back to Ole Miss. But we've talked to you a lot of times about your experience being in the NIL space, and if you were still in that space, how would you treat players, or how would you want to do business with players that keep pushing this model to be able to play year number 6, year number 7, year number 8? Would you still go after them because they are the highest profile players in the game who seem to be kind of abusing the system a little bit, or would you kind of eschew them?
That's a good question. And I think probably I went year to year.
Okay.
So I would not go above a 1-year contract anyway. And I would probably not follow them from university to university, because the way that I used NIL was the universities that were in my space.
Sure.
Okay. So I picked the players based on how that would help my business, right? How it would help Ingles' business. And so that is how I would pick them, and I would continue to pick them that way. And so you wouldn't follow the player, right? You would follow the player at your college that you're partnering with.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's the best way to do it in my point of view for business, because you could end up sponsoring a player and I wouldn't have stores and
Sure.
where they are. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think
So what's the point?
So what's the point, right?
Right.
Okay. It doesn't do anything,
For you.
because it really is supposed to do something
right.
for
No
Ingles,
return.
right? and I think if anybody in business should be basing it on, why are you it really shouldn't be about, it should be all about the player. You're going to have the player with a high profile, but if that player with a high profile happens to be in a market where you're in, and he agrees in your agreement to do everything to help your business, I think you go for it.
Sure. No, I'm with you. That's
Now, I do
interesting.
not agree with this. They've got to stop this school to school to school. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like what are those things that used to go around all the time where they call it
Merry-go-round.
merry-go-round? I mean, oh
Toilets.
my God.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
So-
and how come, Castellanos can't win his suit? How come Granddad's going to win it? I mean, I don't get that. How do you pick that too? How do some win and some don't? I don't get that.
How is it possible that TJ Finley is on his 7th school? Think about this. He started at LSU
He's
in
not
2020.
getting an education.
He started at LSU in 2020, and he's
Yeah.
going to finish his playing at Incarnate Word.
Yeah.
That sounds like
He's
some kind
not-
of software
He's
system.
not. I know. He's not going to get it. He's not getting an education.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, the whole thing was supposed to be so you could have a couple of cards, or you could go out and do a commercial for your local truck dealer.
Yeah.
Okay. And get enough money to buy food.
Wait, drug dealer or truck dealer?
Truck dealer.
Okay.
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 Right.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
That drove from here to Mexico. But now it's even NIL is making money for the universities and the media.
Sure.
Okay. Even that, because you have media people that are big companies are buying media ads, okay, on these big games that are featuring these players, okay. The whole thing was, it's so unfair. We're not making any money. Players need to have a cut of the thing. Players are not getting a cut of this. They're just taking more of the pot for,
Yep.
if there's making the pot bigger they'd have to find other ways to make money in the university to pay for them.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is cluster.
It is. It's a
Okay.
cluster.
And
That's right.
I just think that it's going to be crazy. I mean, who was the old guy that played for the Kansas City Chiefs? I mean, didn't he have to come in and play quarterback at the last minute when Mahomes went down? Was
what's
a
frustrating?
30-something, 38-year-old quarterback?
Yeah. What's frustrating from my standpoint, my last question for you, when you talk about what the subject that you just brought up with NIL and the portal, Nick Saban and Kirk Herbstreit on one of the last college game days of the year were talking about this, and Nick Saban went on this long tirade of how to fix it and what to do, and I think 99% of people support him. But Kirk, sitting to his left, said, "Well, Coach, who do we take this to? Who do we?" And I think he said it. Unless all the conference commissioners agree on it,
Congress.
nothing's going to change. Well, that even we've tried that, and
Well, they're working on stuff. I think that
that's the only way.
they
though.
went in too big in
Yeah.
this bill to cover too much. I think you say portal.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And you don't say no portal. You say portal with these regulations. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I think when we die to say it's here to stay.
Sure.
Right. Okay. So I think we have to try to make it fair.
Yeah.
Okay. And better. But I think in the long run, who do you take it to? You take it to the fan. Okay.
Right.
Because if we don't fill the seat, buy the product, watch the show, okay,
Yeah.
we don't get it. And we're going to have to take a stand at some point and turn off the TV or don't go to that game.
Yeah.
If you don't like what's happening, they're taking more of your money and it's costing $3,000 instead of $500, which used to be for a national championship team. I mean, it was still a lot of money, but okay, you don't buy it.
And the scary thing is, people say FCS is the pure level of the sport.
Oh,
Well,
no.
Guess what? If and it's not. But number two, if fans in mass suddenly said, you know what, I'm not going to watch Michigan or Ohio State or Texas, we're going to go watch our local FCS team.
Right.
That's where all the money would go, and that level of football would get ruined as well.
Right. Mhm.
Melissa, you're the best. We appreciate you as always.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes. Happy New Year to you. And we got big
Go
news
Hoosiers.
today. One of our Tolos in Anderson now picking us up on 101.5 in Anderson. How about
Wow, that's fantastic. I had
Yeah.
you on there too, I think,
Yeah.
on my way here. Yeah.
Before we let you run, Melissa, as I walked past the wing bar a few minutes ago, there was 8 different flavors of wings on that wing bar right there. And That's going to be a big thing, number one, for Monday
Super
night's
Bowl,
national championship
right.
game and for the big game as well. So let people know what they need to do if they want to order a big old platter of wings for one of these events.
It is so easy. You can pick up the phone and call your local Ingles. You can go online and pick the store that you want to go to and order that there.
Awesome.
Or you can go into the store and do it. And you do not need to give us like a full week's or a couple of days notice. If you come in and you want it, 24 hours.
24
awesome.
hours.
24
Love
hours.
it.
Mhm.
Do you
Love it.
personally taste test all the wing sauces?
I do. And I tell you, and the guacamole, my favorite guacamole.
I love
guacamole.
guac.
It's handmade in the store.
I
Chips
love
are
it.
made in the store.
Yeah.
We are made for football.
Let me tell you this.
We are made for
I've been on a health kick trying to do better. No lie, 3 to 4 days a week. My local Ingles in Boiling Springs has build your own burrito bowl.
Yes.
And I
know
eat that
great.
every single day almost.
Isn't
It's so good.
And if you try the pre-prepared meals
Oh,
too, there,
yeah.
that again, it's not like the hot bar. It's like
awesome.
you can go in there already done a meal and two sides, a meat,
Grab
two
it and go.
sides. Grab it and go, and you heat it up when you get home.
Can't beat it.
Mhm.
Cannot
Love
beat it. Melissa Level, the absolute best right here on the Fan Upstate. We love Melissa. She loves you, Tolos, as well. Lulu Kesson of the Greenville News. When we come back talking Lady Gamecocks and more right here on the Fan Upstate.
Clear.
Thank you.
Jace.
Well, a lot to get into, and we have the expert, Lulu Kesson of the Greenville News. She debuted with us last Wednesday in the 4 o'clock hour. You've heard her multiple times on this station, on previously the Rob Brown Show, and we had a couple of text messages last week talking about how great it was to hear Lulu back. Our Tolo's excited to hear you back, Lulu. Do you know, and my apologies for not informing you before you start joining us once a week and you hear us say Tolo and you're like, what are these idiots talking about? Do you know what a Tolo is, Lulu?
Now that I think about it, I'm not sure.
See, so we say it all the time, and Diesel and I, we have to explain ourselves because we have new listeners who, move into the upstate and tune us in and have no idea. I get asked about it in public all the time. So our mission, our goal is for our listeners to turn it on and leave it on, right? And that, in short, the acronym TOLO, T-O-L-O, turn on, leave on. So if you hear us say TOLO, now you know.
Awesome. Perfect. Now I feel very informed.
Now you're a Tolo. You're not in the dark anymore. Appreciate you coming on. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So good to be with you. So glad to have you with us every single Wednesday at this time.
Lulu, we're going to be talking a lot of South Carolina women's basketball in this segment. General South Carolina stuff with you. I just want to know. I'm assuming you've seen the clip earlier this week of Texas women's basketball coach Vic Schaefer kind of being back on his blame train again, calling out the SEC for making him play LSU and South Carolina back-to-back. Really interesting choice of words from Vic there. What was your reaction to that clip as he's going to be facing Dawn Staley again?
Yeah, I think overall I'm not one for complaining about the schedule, and that's what I appreciated about Shane Beamer's approach with it this year. I just think it's bad karma for anyone to sort of categorize one team as, an easy game and one as not. Obviously, we can all acknowledge maybe when South Carolina or Texas are a favorite and they're playing an unranked opponent, but I just don't think it looks good to suggest that a game against Georgia is easier than a game against LSU. Obviously, there are analytics and statistical factors that support what Vic was saying, but Dawn very much understood and sort of defended him. I would say defended him today, just sort of felt like it was something he said kind of after loss in the heat of the moment a little bit. I think he does understand that, this league, this SEC league and women's basketball and SEC play, especially, it's getting harder. And I think that for everyone, there's no easy games anymore, even when an opponent is last in the conference. So I think overall, I was bummed to see sort of that type of, comment be made. But I think just like Dawn said, it was something like in a high stakes, stressful moment. And as she said, he's probably moved on. And I hear the frustration, 2 hard road games, but as South Carolina had, 5 straight ranked opponents, it's somehow just how things work out each year. And you expect the team to not be that great, and they're great. So it's sort of hard to predict. And I don't think the schedule makers have any vendetta against Texas.
We're talking to Lulu Kesson of the Greenville News. Want to get your immediate reaction, Lulu, to some news just a couple of minutes ago from On3 Sports, and Pete Nakos confirming as well. The NCAA has announced the transfer portal in men's and women's college basketball will open for a 15-day period the day after their respective national championship games. So for men, it'll be April 7th to April 21st in 2026. For women, it'll be April 6th to April 20th. Your reaction, and does that change a lot in your mind or not so much?
I think so. I think any portal changes are big nowadays just because I do think even 1 day difference can be drastic. But I also think that it's huge for programs like a South Carolina, like a Texas, like an LSU, teams that know they have some roster building to do in the portal, but also have a championship they're trying to win. I do think that because of sort of how, we all saw last year, obviously, Mylasia Fulwiley left after. And, in the middle of it, Dawn thinks she knows what her roster is, and then she loses a key player. I just think that the sort of window now being after the championship, I think is beneficial to all teams. And I understand the playing field can never be totally equal, but I think that there's a difference so far. That's sort of my immediate reaction without diving too deep into it, is that I do think it'll benefit some of these powerhouse programs. And I understand that might not seem fair, but at the end of the day, you have to have a pretty fair idea of what your roster is going to look like. And I do think it's probably exhausting and unrealistic for some of these coaches who are trying to win, whether it's championship number 4 or 5, 11 or 12 with your UConn, or you're a team that's, making your first run and you're trying to navigate it. Like it's difficult no matter how prepared you feel, no matter how used to it you are.
Lulu, how much customized game plan do you see Dawn Staley's teams putting in for elite level players like they're going to be facing against Madison Booker? She's good for 19 points a game, 7.5 rebounds a game. She's basically out there the whole time. She never seems to get tired. Do you see Dawn more build a defense that can kind of shut down a lot of different styles of players, or do you see them sort of changing things up on a game-by-game basis for the personnel they're going to have to face like Madison?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think with Madison specifically, it's not just what she can do, but it's the threat that she brings if you double team her, because she has really key pieces around her. Rory Harmon is averaging, I think, 7.4 assists per game. She had 9 in the win over South Carolina. And she's also developing her own shot a little bit better than maybe she did last year. She's just a scoring threat. And then you have Jordan Lee, who will take 6 3-point attempts a game, and you don't want to leave her wide open. So it's sort of this, Madison Booker is kind of unreal in the mid-range. And with a mid-range player, they're so unpredictable. And sort of what made last year's 4 matchup so great is that Dawn had a defender like Bree Hall, who really bought into the competitive energy and that sort of dynamic with a one-on-one matchup. So I think that Dawn is well aware that it can't just be, okay, who's guarding Madison? Everybody has to play their role, and it's staying out of foul trouble. So Dawn doesn't have to rely, on her bench for heavy minutes when 6'6" Kyla Oldacre's in. So Madison can just distribute to her with ease. So I think that this is the type of game probably similar to one that they might face in the NCAA tournament, where it's not just a star and, 4 players around her. Like Booker really knows how to see her teammates just as much as she knows how to hit a quick jumper. So it's good practice for a team that, yes, has sort of this outlier, but also really knows how to work in the skills of her teammates as well.
It's kind of interesting you bring that up when you make that point about the strength of schedule, Lulu, and how the SEC prepares South Carolina for the tournament. We were having the conversation earlier in the show about Clemson on the men's side of things and how the tournament play was a little bit different than the ACC play. Just with the men's, a lot of the talk around having older rosters and being a more veteran basketball team. How would you say, from your experience covering South Carolina women's basketball, how would you say the SEC, the gauntlet of the SEC, prepares a team like South Carolina for what they will face in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think because of, especially now, the strength in the SEC, and also just the different type of players that are beginning to play for the SEC, it prepares you, because in the SEC or in the NCAA tournament, like, you're going to get everybody's best, especially if you're South Carolina. It doesn't matter what round it is. Like, that's a Super Bowl for their opponent.
Sure.
And for South Carolina, like, say a Florida and Arkansas, a team that, yes, is towards the bottom of the conference, like, the first half is a Super Bowl for them. You are going to get close to everything that they have. Eventually, you've seen teams sort of like just get tired out, to be honest. But I think that South Carolina playing teams like an Oklahoma, a Vanderbilt, a Texas, and LSU back to back to back. Yes, it might not be where the first round team South Carolina gets is the equivalent of the Final Four team. But just knowing that when you play a team that is so top tier, you're going to get everyone's best, and preparing with back-to-back-to-back ranked games like that will prepare you for why South Carolina is sort of able to weather these storms. I think the biggest difference that separated South Carolina's team in the NCAA tournament specifically is like they can mentally handle it. And I think because of the SEC and stopping a Michaela Blake on the Tuesday and then going in and trying to stop a Texas and then having to stop a Reagan Beers in Oklahoma, it's so many different elements that South Carolina is prepared for mentally, and they're able to not really get rattled when they see it in the first quarter on a Thursday in the NCAA tournament.
Follow Lulu Kessin's work on Twitter at Lulu Kessin, Kesin. I'm glad that you brought up Madison Booker's mid-range threat there and used the word unpredictability, because it's an element that a lot of fans sort of bemoan the shift in the men's game to go so heavily towards shooting a lot of threes, because closing out on threes is a straight line defense, and defending a guy that's driving at full speed is a straight line defense. But with that mid-range, you're forcing defenders to kind of play in multiple directions at the same time. Why do you think it is that, you look at the number of threes attempted per game for men's teams, they're all going up by a lot, like 5, 6, 10 per season on average, 10 per game per season. But with the women's game, you haven't seen that shift yet. Why do you think that is, that the mid-range is just so good that they're not going towards a high volume of threes?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a level of almost like discipline. And I'm not sitting here saying that, women's basketball players are more disciplined than men's, but I think that there's a fundamental understanding that the mid-range doesn't have to disappear to enhance a team's three-point ability. And I think when you look at a team like Texas and South Carolina specifically, like those are two teams that went to the Final Four in the national championship shooting very little threes. I think in one game, Texas beat South Carolina without hitting a single three. Maybe they probably took 4 or 5 that game. And those are two coaches in Vic and Dawn who are kind of like old heads. They've been around, they understand, and they're adapting. And so they're understanding that you're going to have a player that wants to come in and is going to jack up threes. And that's okay as long as the ability to dominate in sort of the elbow mid-range area doesn't, lessen because of that. So I think you see a lot of ball movement. I think you see a lot of understanding that it's sort of like they go hand in hand. Obviously, like my entire generation, it feels like Steph Curry just sort of changed the way and the amount of three-pointers that young kids are sort of learning. But I think, especially in the women's game, it's so team oriented, and it's so much, when you get to the high level, coaches will say flat out, like, if you can't pass the ball, you're not going to make it here. If you don't understand when to make the right extra pass. So I think there's sort of a good balance between if that last shot is taken, inside or behind the arc.
Lulu, I think a lot of fans are probably asking this question as South Carolina, for whatever reason, quietly rolls through SEC play with a big one coming up this weekend. You've seen this team a lot. You've seen them a lot over the years. Do you look at this team and see any areas that concern you? We got the information about the SEC tournament today in our inbox, and the SEC women's tournament in Greenville will be here before you know it. Is there anything when you watch this women's team that concerns you, that you feel like maybe they might have to get better in one or two areas before the postseason play does arrive?
Yeah, to get really kind of nitty-gritty, I think sometimes South Carolina jumps to get the rebound, but isn't necessarily going to secure it. And I think that they've had good rebounding overall, but you give the wrong team a second chance, and it could be a total game changer. And I think tomorrow against Texas, that's a huge sort of thing to improve on, is securing the rebound. If a team like Texas misses a shot, the ball has to land and continue down the court in South Carolina's hands. Kind of a small one, but I think South Carolina could be better at foul shooting. And I say it's a concern because the last time they played Texas, they missed 3 really big late free throws in the fourth quarter, and they ultimately lost on a buzzer beater by 2.
Yeah.
So you look at sort of tournament time, if one player sticks out with foul shooting, like an opponent could purposely put that player on the line, and that matters. And I say that because you don't want to address things 5 days before your first tournament game. You want to ensure that the mistakes that you're making, or sort of the areas of improvement, don't feel so drastic or so heavy that you're scrambling to fix them. So I think sort of midway through, 4 SEC games down, those are 2 areas, like rebounding and foul shots. They seem small, but they could really matter, and you don't want them to seem too big of a mountain to climb or improve by, get elimination games, basically.
Lulu Kessin of the Greenville News joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I'm going to throw you a curveball here for my last question, Lulu. Your header on Twitter is a screenshot and a quote from Robin Williams as John Keating in Dead Poets Society. What movie or TV teacher's class would you most like to audit? Not named John Keating.
Ooh, I think I would have to go. I would love to be in School of Rock when Jack Black's character takes over the classroom and teaches them about music, because I think that's also one of like my most favorite movies in the entire world. But I think that would be fun, and I would kill to be in like a private school and witness everyone have this total music education transformation type of thing. But that's a good question. Thank you for knowing, for noticing my header and knowing what movie. I appreciate that.
Well, if you want the movie conversation, Diesel's your man. I'm not, just so you know. Diesel always brings up movies, and I kind of have to check out. Lulu, you're the best. As always, appreciate you, and looking forward to talking to you again next week.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Have a good rest of your week.
You too. Lulu Kesson of the Greenville News right here on the Fan Upstate. If you missed any of it, you can go back and find it on the free Odyssey app, AUDACY.
Good stuff there from Lulu Kesson. Tolos, when we come back, it is time to do our whip around the sports world. A lot to get to today, a lot of headlines. Our Daily Wire's next.
Clear.
drops. Let's get right to it. Cole, our daily wires, the buzz happening around the sports world. We talked about this earlier. Clemson put BTA against Boston College. 74-50 was the final score last night at Little John Coliseum. The Tigers now 15-3 on the season, 5-0 in ACC play. They're on a winning streak, and they'll host Miami on Saturday at 2:15.
It's been a while since they've lost.
Yeah.
Like a while. They're playing well, man.
Well, they were consistent, too. They put up, I think, 37 points in both the first and the second half. Yeah. Furman, they are on the road tonight at Samford. The Paladins are 3-1 in league play. They took a tough loss to Western Carolina a couple nights ago. That was not a good loss. But they've out of their last 10 games, Cole, they've been on the better end a lot.
Yeah, no doubt.
Wofford going to host Chattanooga tonight at 6 o'clock. The Terriers are also 3-1 in league play. And by the way, that Furman game tonight, you will hear the call starting right here at 6:30 on the Fan Upstate.
That SoCon's interesting this year, man. That Chattanooga, like they're not big bad Chattanooga of old. Wofford's kind of still trying to find themselves with a head coach coming in like 6 seconds before the season started. So, it's interesting.
I asked Rocco Miller about the SoCon yesterday, and he said it's wide open, which is translation for it's not very good, top to bottom.
No, it is wide open. I agree with him. It's as wide open as I've seen it in a long time.
Notre Dame football coach Marcus Freeman is expected to stay in South Bend in 2026 despite interest from several NFL teams. Freeman received an enhanced contract last month to stay at Notre Dame, but has been linked to a lot of NFL head coaching jobs. Of course, a lot of like the Steelers would love to have him. The Giants would love to have him, but it seems as if he's going to stay put.
I like it.
Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq will leave the program early to declare for the NFL draft. So the Ducks losing a good one there. Yesterday, Cole, no, I think this actually happened this morning. FBS coaches voted unanimously to adjust the redshirt rule to allow players to participate in up to 9 games while preserving their full year of eligibility in the sport. That's up from 4 games. Dabo Sweeney was there. Kirby Smart was there. Dabo said, the hope is that it keeps players invested longer in the season rather than having them opt out after 4 games. Ohio State tight end Max Clark is leaving school early to declare for the NFL draft. He'll be one of the draft's top tight ends as he comes off a season where he had 43 catches for just shy of 450 yards and 2 touchdowns. He is the number 5 draft eligible tight end in the positional rankings from Mel Kiper Jr. LSU signed Arizona State transfer quarterback Sam Leavitt.
Wow.
Leavitt, the number 2 quarterback and top uncommitted player in the transfer rankings, chose to play for Lane Kiffin and the Tigers. He took visits to Miami, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
That's interesting, man. I know that Sam Leavitt's a good quarterback. I think even though he's good, even though LSU is going to be good, I still think there's some unknowns there. It's just coming into a new system, first-year head coach. I don't know. I don't know what to expect.
And coming off an injury, too. How is that going to affect them?
Sam Leavitt versus Christopher Pizzina, week 1.
Oh, how about that?
Death Valley.
I like the Tigers' chances in that one.
Yeah, me too.
UCLA's athletic department has received a $17.3 million gift from a late alumnus named Lawrence Lane, who earned an MBA at the school in 1977. It's part of an over $40 million pledge to multiple areas of the university. Lane died in December of 2024. The gift comes at the same time the athletic department is seeking new sources of revenue after running up $219.55 million in debt during the past 6 fiscal years.
Okay.
How do you do that? How do you get that deep?
What'd that guy die from? We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know the cause of death. Don't ask any questions.
How many more rich alums can we snuff off to cover this debt?
That's terrible, but geez.
Live Golf has signed 2-time major champion Dustin Johnson to a multi-year extension. Yesterday we talked about this, Cole, with Brooks Koepka leaving Live to rejoin the PGA Tour. We thought maybe some more of those Live golfers would come back to the PGA with that one-time offer from the PGA, but nope, not Dustin. He is staying put.
Yeah, I mean, I expected a lot of them to stay put.
Yeah, it's a huge financial penalty to come back, even though they're not really taking away money from these guys. They're just not paying them money that they otherwise would be owed. But It's a sticky situation, but not all of them are going to take that payout to come back.
No doubt.
And those are your daily wires.
It's the buzz that's happening in the sports world. Diesel, a little game time in the next segment. We hadn't done this in a long time. We've got to get back to some of these fun games. It's been a while since we've done describe it in one word. That had great interaction last time we did that. But a little game time in the next segment, sports edition of What's More Likely. That's next.
Big fan of the show right there, by the way.
on the Fan Upstate.
We've got Brett Siegel of ClutchPoints.com coming up in about 22 minutes right here on the Fan Upstate. Brett will join us once a week to talk a little NBA. So if you are an NBA fan, you better make sure you're toloing, turning it on, and leaving it on in the very next segment. But Diesel, it's time for you and I to play a game, a little what's more likely game, where we ask the question of which is more likely, and you, Tolos, are invited to join, invited to play along as well at 844-326-3663. It's the Joy Law Firm text line. Phone lines are also open, but the Joy Law Firm will be the quickest way to hit us during the game. We can also read your comments from the stream. 117 Tolos watching the show right now on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Are you ready for the challenge, Diesel? You ready for this?
I am, Cole. I've got one that I'm going to throw out at you before we even get started.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how we have a lot of hardcore South Carolina Gamecock fans that call into the show?
Yes.
And they will tell us, and Tom is one of them, by the way. Tom will tell us things like, I would rather go naked and cold than put on an orange shirt to stay warm. I was just in the restroom here at Ingles Markets,
right,
and you know how they have the Ingles branded hand soaps on the counter to use?
Sure.
They were all orange and purple. So would Tom in Somerville use orange hand soap or not wash his hands after he goes to the bathroom?
God, I would hope it would be use the orange hand. I think they not want to use the soap. Oh.
But it's orange. People say, like, in your mind, car, you have to say, you don't drink orange. You have those Tolos who say those things. Some of those are not the same. Something's wrong with it. All right, it's just the color. So it's time for a little game. What's more likely on the Fan Upstate? I've got about 8 throw at you. Tolos on here for 844-263. That's the way you hit the Joy Law Firm text line. We start at the college football world. What's more likely? The Joy Law Firm text line. Clemson to make college football playoff in 2004. Alyssa Level, her Florida State Seminole, going to Florida State. She might be listening. What's more likely? To make the PFP next season? God, I would say South Florida has a better PFP than Florida. Michael Bell of Florida State has been at the office. It seems as if his entire thing with Florida State is summed up by George Travis. And without George Travis, they didn't have. So, you know, I mean, you got to think that the Tom Allen is probably, if it gets cooking the way he wants it to cook it, bringing in all the old personnel and transfer portal, they should have a high level defense that can probably put up a lot of games, even if Christopher is just average. You know, they both play in the same conference, so you can't really look at it from a standpoint of what happened. They're probably really simple, right? As long as they do, they have to play out. Obviously, their schedule is a little bit different. In terms of who they're competing, some of them will be another next year. What's more like? What's next year or Florida State? You can go with I don't think either one of these teams makes it next. But if you had to choose,
you had to choose one. Tolos, what say you at 844-32?
You know, I'm not the big Michael that I'm not. I do brought up about George Travis, you know, that they kind of have football in way people, but Shane brings up a good point of the story. So don't see one for the state. Just now calling the over quarterback and actually just this scary, but the answer is question. Is it? Can we trust Christopher Medina between the two? I don't know. That's what I would say.
lot better, and I mean it a lot better than they were. They weren't good 2000. So you and I both going to Tom did it at Pittsburgh, did it at State. What's more like Fernando Mendoza to throw 2 interceptions for that, or Carson Beck to throw the winning touchdown? What's more likely? Fernando Mendoza to throw 2 interceptions, or Carson Beck to throw the winning touchdown? What's more likely? Fernando Mendoza threw 6 interceptions off his last interception was over a month ago.
Against Ohio State. Yeah, against Ohio State, he took a 6. He just throw a pick in that game. He didn't throw picks. There's no way I see him throw 2 in the same game. 2. And that's not to say, that's not to say Miami doesn't have to lead. He do. But 2 in the same game, that means not the field goal right now. He is eliminated. I would most likely of those 2 scenarios with the Carson Beck. Whoa! That Mount Tony has been that good. Yards after that, breaks off tackle, keeping it in a tight ball game. And you're in a 1-4 situation. I think that's more likely.
You know what? I am going to differ with you on this one. I'm going to disagree. I think it's more likely that Fernando Mendoza throws the 2 picks. Now, you brought up that stat. That's like foreign language, right? Fernando Mendoza. However, I do believe that Miami is the best defense that Fernando Mendoza has in a while, and it's not all season. And I think that we can bring pressure up the gut, put pressure on the quarterback, and get plus time. I think it allows the playmakers, especially the secondary, to have more advantages, more opportunities. I think they're more likely to Fernando Mendoza to throw 2 interceptions. Solo, what's the Solo? 3-2-6-3-6-6-6. Shane says, "Oh, Jesus, Mendoza with the Miami good. Nobody else calls back to the touchdown." Shane, you better be careful. That draft will come at you.
I'm trying to see which defensive country get the most interceptions. Which teams have been the best ball hawking defense? Have you heard that? I don't have to talk about that. We'll get that. All right.
What's more likely? Next question. Going to Clemson. Big, bad Brad. These are what's more likely. Brad Brownell this season to make another Elite 8 with 1-2. Or Brad Brownell to be a first round exit.
First round. I mean, come on. History has shown that's how Brad Brownell plays. They can be good all season long, and they can play that game really quickly. For whatever reason, Brad Brownell does not do a good job. For he does. He's not great with ACC tournament play. He's not great at NCAA tournament play. That's the answer.
Wow. Okay. Mitchell gets in on the full offer. I'm going to set Mendoza, but not 2. That's why I asked the 2 would be maybe a little bit of a stretch, right? I am going to say I think this is going to be make it fun this year. They don't have what still a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to say it's lots of a stretch.
By the way, here is the answer to that question. How much will Miami has picked off opponents 16 times in the regular season. That is Here's the thing. Indiana's picked up. Miami is a top 50 in that specific category. They're very. I just think, all right, what's more like the your Carolina fan, almost all right. Your Carolina fans will the playoffs next season, or the Panthers will finish third or worse division. What's more like? Make the playoffs in the NFC South or finish third or worse in the division? This one's tough. Third or worse. I mean, how much better are the Falcons get? I don't know that the thing for being last is better. I think Tyler Shuck's a good quarterback. But, they don't have the weapons. Also, same question for Falcons. Okay, how the Falcons going to get drastically better? We still don't know who that will be. I don't think they're going to finish third or fourth. So most likely to happen if they make playoffs again. I think they're on an upward trajectory. I think they're good ball offensive weapons to see over them. It's your option for Bryce Young. Who could say it in 2 years now? This is the make it or break it for Bryce Young. It would be just okay with him. Sellable asset. And you can go, you can pick up a bidder set that and you can do whatever you want.
Jake says Saints about agree. I'm going to agree there. I think it's more likely for them to make it. I can feel RJ on the JOYE Law. Don't forget Clemson basketball lost starting guard also within the last couple of weeks to a point. Curious to see how that affects them. Also, 2 points here also on the JOYE Law for section. Appreciate the section. Always. What's more likely to be Lane Kiffin to make the BF in this first? Or hurts the game to test the CFP next season.
Lane making it. But he's close to everybody. He's losing everybody, but did he get him in the playoffs his first 2 years there? Did his first year with a whole bunch of transfers? And he's got him here at national championship with a whole bunch of transfers. He did. His Kurt Spaghetti, he's got something special when it comes to putting together portal guys. Okay, and while Lane is out there chasing the 5 stars, Kirby's out there chasing 5 stars, Haley's out there chasing 5 stars in the portal. Kurt's like, you know what? I'm going to get a bunch of winners. I want guys who are proven winners, not from paper.
You're saying Kurt's not this. No way.
What's more likely? Like the football playoff first season.
What a wild twist that would be.
Here's a big question. Does Shane Kiffin, Beamer, yes, Shane Kiffin, Kiffin, it sounds like something to get a puppy after beating South Carolina. Will Shane Beamer in South Carolina make a playoff good winning his game? Good. First, good. Should. It's not. It's good. But will he even make it? All right, let's see where we go. What's for like Josh Allen
To win his first ever Super Bowl this season.
By the way, the field first ever. Or Josh Allen. Yeah. What's more like? The Bills are a little iffy this year. I think they're good. Good. I mean, are we really going to put it in that Kelly conversation? Where he's really good all the time, but never winning one. I really hope that's not the
All right. What's more likely? You brought this up to the time with me. John Staley for another national title before, basically. What's more likely to happen first, I guess? John Staley to win another championship or St. Petersburg to make it? Now, what's more likely to happen first? Dawn could win it this year. You say Dawn. Thank Dawn. No, it's such a brutal environment. It's such a brutal environment. It's so many question marks about South Carolina football. What if they stink it up this year? It's not back again, so he may not make it to the college football playoff, expanded era, whatever that may be. I mean,
Does South Carolina make a 16 run at the 16-team playoff?
I think
it's iffy.
Yeah.
At 24, you say probably.
yeah.
But I mean, again, is he gonna get that much time?
Yeah, it's true. RJ, before we go to the phone lines real quick, texted and says Signetti picked up Turbo Richards in the transfer portal from Boston College. Richards is a Northwestern high school alum. Big pickup for the Hoosiers going in the next season. RJ, I watched Turbo run the opening kickoff back against Gaffney in 2023 on the very first play of the game. And, yeah, that kid's legit. I hadn't seen him, obviously, in a couple of years, but he's a good football player. That's a big pickup. Let's go to the phone lines where Dewey wants to weigh in, and there's no telling what Dewey has to say. What's up, Dewey?
Yes, I want to play the game.
Oh, okay. Well, I got one more for you. Hold on.
All right, back. Sorry about that, dude. It's too low. I've got one more for you. This is South Carolina, okay? The deal you did. What's more likely? All the news gets the boot, or the Harris gets the boot. They were fired first.
Wait a minute. Didn't you just say Paul Maneri's going to get fired this year?
Both this year? You think both are going to get fired this offseason? Julie, what's most likely to happen? That draft density wrong for an actual strike here. I might be call out. We're that draft loaded. Tell them to y'all left the spring, Joey. We're that draft left. If you get upset, we're having some good fun back in the first second. Hey, did you put your snow tires, dude? You recorded? Yeah. Thank you. Some guys, I don't got really ideas of what break. Oh, still there? Well, it would be fun. Recall that earlier in the show, the level that we could have watched the top. It was a scary call. They were at 8,004 award. They had that highway to Spartanburg. We have a gift card to give away. Our last one left. If you want to come by and see us, we're going to be here until about 6:30, so it's about an hour and 10 minutes. Wait, don't often talk NBA on Fire to Wire, but when we do, this is a great studio of the guy that does it all. Brett Siegel, NBA writing for kind of welcome to the show. Brett, I'd like to get up here in a while. What can you tell us about this John Morant situation in Memphis? His fight, defense, practice, possibly good for a trade. Is there a coach or an ownership group that you think he would gel with the best? And that's basically going to be the consideration. Would you see him as sort of a guy that will behave badly in multiple locations to It's interesting about changes. What about the changes that Detroit done? That change that really fit the
in a bunch of different rotations. So the Hawks add depth, they get cap relief, and now they can turn their attention to continuing to build around their youth while also keeping these all-stars that are on the market in mind, whether it's Anthony Davis or somebody else. Maybe there's an opportunity for them to buy low moving forward.
Brett, Carolina Panthers fans have finally seen their team, come out of the shadow realm. The Panthers have been awful for a decade, Is anything like that possibly on the horizon for Charlotte Hornets fans? Because, man, this is a fan base that has struggled to find any kind of sustained success for a long, long time. I mean, yeah, Brandon Miller, exceptional. Yeah, Con Knipple is off to a phenomenal start in his rookie campaign. But, is there a scenario in which you see the Charlotte Hornets maybe with an additional piece next year kind of actually becoming relevant in the NBA?
Well, I think that Hornets fans definitely have to be pleased with what they've seen from Charles Lee in this new front office over the last years. There's definitely been clear growth in the philosophy and kind of what direction this franchise is going. They had 19 wins during the 24-25 season. They're already at 14 this year, probably going to get somewhere around 25, which, again, it's not great. You're not going to make the playoffs like that, and they have one of the longest playoff droughts in the league, maybe the longest one right now. I haven't even looked at that, but the Charlotte Hornets definitely are trending in the right direction with those two guys like you mentioned, Brandon Miller, Con Knipple. They look like two young stars on the rise. And then obviously if you get another high draft pick this year, that gives you the opportunity to add another one of these high-level talents because there's plenty of them in the draft lottery. There's going to be a lot of future all-stars coming out in this 2026 draft. So they have the foundation of a good thing going. I think that there's still plenty of pieces away. You got to be able to bring in the right veterans to lead this group, as we've seen with some of these young teams on the rise for years. I think great example is the Detroit Pistons, where you got Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, some of these young guys, but they've really been able to have growth because of the veterans that they brought in, like Tobias Harris, Karis LeVert, Duncan Robinson. And so you got to be able to find that balance. I think the Hornets are still kind of charting that path. And then obviously you got to figure out what the future looks like for LaMelo Ball. That's not something that is going to be solved at this trade deadline. They're going to go into the offseason and reevaluate where they're at with Ball, what he wants, what the organization wants, and really figure out if he's going to be a part of the future. Because right now, LaMelo is 24 years old. He has 4 years left on that contract. And there's just been question marks about, is he still the guy there? Is he the star that they want to build around? And it does appear as if that baton has been passing away to Brandon Miller and Con Knipple this season. So I think that there's still a lot of unknowns in Charlotte and still a lot of time before we get answers to those questions. A lot of it's going to unfold in the offseason.
We're joined by Brett Siegel of ClutchPoints.com right here on the Fan Upstate. He'll join us weekly to talk NBA. Brett, keeping it on the Charlotte note and bringing in another local note, very, very local from right here in the Upstate where we broadcast, a Dorman High School product, a Clemson graduate, and P.J. Hall being signed in Charlotte and has spent some time in other organizations. Was in Denver last year. What does it mean for P.J. Hall, from what you've seen, to be able to make a pretty immediate impact for this Charlotte team? And from what you've also heard, do you think that P.J. might have a new home in Charlotte based on his early production?
Yeah, I mean, everything I've heard is that they like him a lot, and that's why they signed him to that two-way deal. And he seems to be very happy to be back in that area and be with Charlotte. He said, I think the other day, that it was like a dream come true when he was signing that contract for him. So he's gotten into the rotation, given some of their injury troubles in the front court, and he's been productive. So we'll see where this goes. I think that the Hornets are still figuring out who those guys outside of Knipple and Miller are going to be, and it's kind of an open competition for anybody that can produce and can get minutes. What can they show them? So it's going to be interesting to see what P.J. Hall's role looks moving forward, and we'll see what happens with that two-way contract, because he can only play a certain amount of games, and then they're going to have to think about maybe converting him to a standard deal.
Brett, the NBA draft lottery is an interesting concept. The way they put this whole thing together, instead of putting the best players on the worst possible teams, they leave it up to chance and who you might get. I'm going to throw a little sour grapes here at you. The Charlotte Hornets, now 2 years in a row, have had an opportunity at the best player in the draft with Victor Wembanyama, not getting him going to San Antonio, and obviously with Con Knipple being right there and him ultimately going to Dallas. Would you ever support a change in that lottery percentage to give teams that have struggled for the longest period of time a better chance, not the absolute number one pick, but a better chance at getting better players? Because it just feels like there's a lot of franchises in the NBA that always sit in that, bridesmaid but never a bride when it comes to the number one pick.
It's certainly an interesting thing to dive into, and there's so many different ways to look at this. You could throw out a ton of different scenarios for, yes, they need to change it. No, they don't. I've personally always been of the belief that I like the lottery system as it is, especially because you have those top teams at the top of the lottery. They all kind of have the same amount of odds. I believe it's the 3 worst teams wind up getting the same odds for the first overall pick, and then it kind of goes down from there. A lot of fans will point to last year and use the Dallas Mavericks as an example of them being a borderline playing team, and then they ended up with Cooper Flagg, and there's all that talk of, oh, well, they trade away Luka Doncic, and getting Cooper Flagg was their consolation prize from the NBA. That's not the case at all. There was nothing rigged about it. You can even go watch the draft lottery of how it happened. The NBA is very transparent about that. They have a law firm that does it for them. And so I like the lottery system how it is, because it kind of takes away the ability to tank where, yeah, you can still have teams throw games near the end of the year and try to improve their lottery odds. But unlike the NFL, where halfway through the year, a team may just quit and bench all their best players just to get the number 1 pick, you can't do that in the NBA. And so Adam Silver and the league office have very much been against tanking through the years. That's why they're not going to change the draft lottery at this point. And what I'll say to Hornets fans is, yeah, you've missed out on some of these big guys, whether it's Anthony Edwards or Victor Wembanyama, but maybe that's a sign of good things to come. Eventually, the tide will turn in their favor, and maybe that will happen this year, where they're the ones that end up lucking out and they move up to 1 or 2 on this draft board, and they can get a Darren Peterson from Kansas or a Cam Boozer from Duke or AJ DeBonta from BYU. I think that at some point the tide will turn in their favor, and maybe that is going to happen this year.
Brett, what's the temperature check in your mind on this entire situation in Milwaukee? Giannis, obviously rumors about him and trade rumors and being somewhere else for another franchise. And then, just recently they're down like 30 points at halftime to Minnesota. The fans are booing him. He's booing them back. It just, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a redeemable situation right now. How do you kind of gauge what's going on in Milwaukee?
I think they have 3 weeks to pretty much figure out Giannis' future. Not that he's going to be traded before the trade deadline, but if they don't go out and make some kind of substantial move, and in a market where everything's dry, there's really no big move you can make to turn things around, really, and make this team a true championship contender. I just don't see how this scenario ends with Giannis staying in Milwaukee past this offseason. I think that he's continued to shut it down because he's tired of hearing about all these rumors. He doesn't want people constantly bringing him up because, A, he hasn't requested a trade, and B, he's remained committed to the Bucks. And I think that he deserves a lot of praise for that, because many star players around this league, and we've seen it, would just request out and be tired of this situation. But he's tried to make it work over the years since their championship run. This roster has changed up and down. They've tried to make championship moves for him, and they're going to continue to try to do that. But their options are so limited given their cap situation with Damian Lillard's deferred salary, and then you really only have the contracts of Kyle Kuzma and Bobby Portis to trade, along with that 2031 first-round pick in the future. So that's what they're dealing with right now. They're searching the market. They've contacted almost every team in the league trying to figure out what they can do, and I'm confident saying that the Bucks are going to make a trade before the trade deadline. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to move the needle. But if they can get in the playoffs and Giannis is healthy, we've seen it before. He's been able to carry this team in the Eastern Conference, where you got a lot of young, inexperienced teams. Who knows? Maybe if you add one dynamic scorer, that's all they need to go on a little bit of a run.
Brett Siegel of ClutchPoints.com. I was reading up on some Warriors not fan side, but some beat writers who write about the Golden State Warriors a couple of weeks ago, and they were throwing out a lot of scenarios about Steph Curry's future, about trading him while there's still a little bit of value, a little bit of gas in that tank. What does your heart tell you about Steph Curry? Does he retire a Warrior? Does he stay with them through the end, or could you see him kind of doing that victory lap and bouncing around between a couple of teams before it's all said and done?
Cole, I can promise you there is a 0% chance that Stephen Curry is getting traded before the end of his career. He's a Golden State Warrior. For the rest of his life, he's going to be involved with this organization well past the time that he retires. And so he is the face of the Warriors franchise. He's one of the greatest players in league history, and it's just fan fiction. It's never going to happen. But the Warriors ahead of the trade deadline, they are also going to be busy. They're a team just like the Bucks, who are very active in trade calls. They're trying to find a big upgrade, and they're using Jonathan Kuminga as trade bait with that $22.5 million cap hit this year. They also have Moses Moody. They have Buddy Hield's contract. And the one name that we keep hearing come up is from the Brooklyn Nets, Michael Porter Jr., a proven champion from the Denver Nuggets. He's had a career year averaging over 20 points per game with the Nets. And it seems like whether it's him or some other type of player, the Warriors will be making a move, and they're going to remind everybody that they're not done just yet. They may be one of the oldest teams in the league. It may be looking like Curry, Butler, and Green are nearing the end of their respective careers, but Curry's still playing at an MVP-like level, and we saw last season they beat the Houston Rockets in the first round of the playoffs, and if Curry didn't hurt his hamstring, who knows what would have happened in that Timberwolves series. So all they need is a little bit of health. They need one more piece, and this team can still be in championship condition.
Brett, you are the absolute best, man. Always appreciate your time and looking forward to doing it again next week.
No problem, Cole. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely. Brett Siegel, clutchpoints.com. Good stuff there, man. And to your point, Diesel, we only talk NBA, every blue moon, but Brett, he is just awesome. He is so engaged in with what's happening in the NBA. So really appreciate his time.
We got into that question about, the future of the Hornets and maybe ever finally landing a number one pick. To me, though, Brett got into a little bit of a hope is not a strategy realm. It's like, well, it's got to land for you at some point. But, man, when you've got generational talents like Cooper Flagg and Wemby, those being what it seems to hurt. It makes you feel like the fix is in against you.
No doubt. Diesel, this audio is absolutely fascinating. If you hadn't heard this yet, why Steve Bisciotti fired John Harbaugh in Baltimore. This, I almost had to do a double take when I heard it to make sure it wasn't like AI, and Steve Bisciotti, kind of a loose cannon on the microphone. That audio on why he fired John Harbaugh, that's next.
Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
All right, this audio is fascinating. Steve Biscotti, Diesel,
I like his cookies.
Yep. Those aren't.
They go well with coffee.
Yeah. I think I said Biscotti. I think it's Biscotti. Sorry. A very proper name he has.
Yes.
Why he fired John Harbaugh. 3 pieces of audio here. The first one I'm going to play, I love this question by this reporter. You know the field goal that was missed that basically ended the season of Baltimore? If that field goal was good, would Harbaugh still have a job? Here's that audio. So I'm going to play that again. The question was, if Loop makes that field goal, is John Harbaugh still coaching the team? Very direct, very cold. Here's Biscotti. So only 1 week. It was pretty much made up in the mind of Steve Biscotti that he was going to fire John Harbaugh. Now, Diesel, do you know how he fired John Harbaugh? And what method?
I'm guessing a text.
Nope. He picked up the phone, called him. Here's that question. So was Steve Biscotti in the wrong for firing Harbaugh over the phone, Diesel, NFL head coach?
Yes. When you're at that level, you do these things professionally. You do them face to face. You don't hide behind anything. And I'm not saying that he is, but there was a stand-up comedian. I forget who it was. I think it was Chris Rock, who did a bit once about, hey, if you knew you were going to fire me, do it on Friday. Don't do it on Monday.
Ooh.
Don't make me come back to work on Monday morning.
Yeah.
Just to get let go.
Sure.
Like if you're going to do it, just do it. But Jim Harbaugh, he's not worried about burning up gas money to drive into the office.
Yeah.
You do these things the right way.
Yeah, no doubt. Last one, will Lamar Jackson, Diesel, have any power, any say-so? He's their franchise quarterback. How much say will Lamar Jackson have in the next hire? Here's the answer. Well, nobody's asking, hey, are you going to give him power, Diesel? Just maybe say so.
I appreciate where he's going with that. I mean, how many times have we seen, players who think they're coaches and coaches who think they're owners kind of getting a little big for their britches, and the internet will say things like, well, he should have all the power.
Yeah.
He should decide. Well, what does Lamar Jackson know about hiring head coaches? Nothing. He knows about being a quarterback. He knows about dissecting defenses. He knows about strategy, and that's great and all. But head coach has more to do than just manage one player. You cannot let that happen.
Look, I'm with you, but Steve Biscotti does sound a little arrogant. A little bit. I've got the power. We know you've got the power. You're the decision maker, Jerry Jones.
Well, I know. Like I said, I do appreciate the fact that he said, I'll let him have an opinion.
There you go.
I'll listen to it. I'll hear it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they get to make that decision. I mean, how old is Lamar Jackson? He's getting a little bit older, right? I mean,
up there for
are you going to let
age,
Lamar make the decision on a head coach who could be with the franchise if things go well for the next 15 to 20 years?
Yeah.
But Lamar Jackson might only be with this franchise for another 5.
No, I definitely want him to have like say I definitely want it to be a right fit. But no, ultimately, I agree with you. Lamar's short term compared to the longevity, hopefully, of the coach, to your point. So it'll be interesting, but nonetheless, one of the bigger job openings, now 2 in that division, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, man, both of those jobs open. And 2 good coaches in John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin looking for a JOB.
Yeah, Cole, let's dive a little deeper into that on the other side of the break. I'm going to ask you the question, are these 2 coaches and some of the others who are constantly being thrown around out there for head coaching jobs, are they don't let them get out of the building type of candidates? If you bring them in, if you interview them, you don't let them leave until they sign on the dotted line to be your head coach. We'll talk about it next.
Clear.
Cole, you keep seeing it. So-and-so is interviewing for this job. So-and-so is talking to that team. This team is requesting to interview the Rams passing game coordinator. Who of this crop of coaches, Cole, that is currently being thrown around? Mike Tomlin is obviously a huge name in this one. John Harbaugh is obviously a huge name in this one. Who do you look and see and say, if I'm in a position of strength and I'm trying to interview one of these guys, who do I not let out of the building? That old phrase, don't let them get out of the building without saying, yes, I'll be your next head coach.
I think Diesel, number one, I'd have to go Harbaugh. And maybe that's just me kind of being guilty of using his last name to hold a lot of weight. Now, I will say, here's a wild card I'll throw at you. Of course, I like Mike Tomlin, but I'll throw a wild card. I do not know, Diesel, if it was him or if it was them. What am I talking about? I don't know if Kevin Stefanski was a bad coach or if Cleveland was just a terrible place to be. I kind of like Kevin Stefanski, and I kind of think he might be a good coach one day.
We're giving a lot of quarterbacks that second run, second shot at it. Maybe you had a bad coordinator. Maybe you had a bad head coach, or the situation just wasn't right. Nobody wins in Cleveland. So can we really hold not being good in Cleveland against anybody?
No, you can't. And that's my whole point. Like, how do we really know that Kevin Stefanski's a bad coach, right? I mean, do we know that he's a bad guy? It's Cleveland, for crying out loud. So
the Cleveland rocks.
Right. So I kind of feel like Stefanski's going to be a hot name in this coaching search.
If you brought Robert Saleh in for an interview, would you make him sign before he left the building?
No, because he's doing such a good job with Sanford. Here's my thing on Robert Saleh. He wasn't a good coach, but same situation. Was it him or was it them? Was it him or was it New York? It's the Jets, right? It's the Jets. He's doing a really good job, though, in San Francisco. So he seems to be like a good defensive coordinator. I don't think he's terrible, to answer your question.
Here's a guy that you have a lot of firsthand experience, Cole. Let's say you bring in Mike McCarthy for an interview. Are you making him say no? You lock the doors and say, hey, Mike, this is not a kidnapping, but we're not letting you leave until you sign.
Diesel, I'll be honest with you, I probably don't even bring him in. So here's the deal on Mike. Left Green Bay. He was out of the game for some time. Got fired in Dallas, out of the game. He's on Pat McAfee. He does a good job there. He's funny. He's likable. I think he needs to stick to TV. Fair. He's been out of the game, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cliff Kingsbury's name is being thrown around, and he's interviewing for a couple of jobs. He had 6 seasons as an NFL head coach. He's an offensive schemer. He's an air raid kind of guy. Wants to put up big numbers and run a fast, fun kind of offense. Are you even bringing him in for an interview? Let's say you're one of these needy teams. Maybe not the upper crust. Maybe you're the Dolphins. Are you bringing him in to talk?
I'll bring him in. Bring him in. I don't love Kingsbury. I don't hate Kingsbury. So that's kind of where I am on that.
I think Cliff needs the right people around him to find the maximum level of success.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, how do you say no to Harbaugh, though? That guy's just been so good. Tomlin's obviously out there now as well. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think there's only two. There's only 2 of those candidates. It's Harbaugh and Tomlin.
No, I'm with you. Would
you let Tomlin leave?
Depending on the situation, it'd be tough. I would want one of them. There's no doubt. Tolos, when we come back, we are going to take a deep dive, and I mean deep dive, into South Carolina, the Lady Gamecocks, the women's basketball team. We're going to talk to Lulu Kesson of the Greenville News. Lulu covers South Carolina. She's the absolute best. We'll talk Gamecocks, Dawn Staley, the matchup against Texas, and so much more with Lulu Kesson of the Greenville News next on the